There is nothing wrong with buying new guns. New shiny things are really nice. However, if you asked me how I would spend 1,500 quid on a gun, this is pretty much it. And I know this because this is one of my guns. Although I hope my wife isn't watching this, because this is definitely not one of my guns if that is the case. This is a Browning GTI Ultra Sporter 32-inch multi-choke with my Manuel Ricciardo clipped on the back. You can pick up tired GTIs like this one. To be fair, I've done some work to it, so it's not quite as tight as it was when I got it. For well under 1,000. You can get a Manuel Ricciardo stock. Let's say without the adjustable cone, with all the bit, in a grade 1 piece of wood for well under 1,000. In fact, if you shop right, you could get them for 1,500, hence the title of this video. And this is what I wanted to show you, is how I would do it. What I've got here is a custom fitting shotgun on a fully reliable, time-tested action. It's already tired, it's already shagged, and it's not particularly pretty. I say that's a lie, I think it's really pretty. And today, we're gonna smash up some clays with it, before giving you a conclusion. Alright, so the Manuel Ricciardo GTI. This is what is commonly called a beast. Oh. Big, controlled, fits very well indeed. Oh. Let's be honest, this wood and stock looks way better on this action than it did on the Mark 38. And now, it takes no effort to shoot. How can you not fall in love with clouds of dust for under 2 grand that fits and handles like this? Smooth as silk. Sounds stupid, but the gun you learn on doesn't take much going back to. I mean, this is chalk and cheese by comparison to the one that I learned on. It wasn't a Sport or Ultra, it was just a GTI Plus, and it had a standard factory stock and blah, 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 but what a beast. Solo to lay on, a little bit of skeet. No idea if this is set up as English or Olympic. Only one way to find out. Start with a high single. Are we ready? Let's be blunt. I've already said this, but I'm going to say it again. Most guns that have been made over the last 40 years are brilliant. Some were less so, but some were exceptional. Some are really the top of their game, much like the GTI Sporter and the 682 back in the 90s. And those guns are now loved a little less. This is from 1991, which was almost a good year. It's a wonderful thing, you know, it's aesthetically a bit beat, but I can live with that. I'm not looking at it when I'm looking down the rib. Let's be honest, they shot incredible scores back then. The standard of shooting now is a bit higher, I think, obviously. Our understanding of it and the sharing of information around it is much greater. Things that we know for sure now that everyone takes for granted, which they didn't 30 years ago. Gun fit matters. The internet has made getting specialised custom fit stock from Italy and Portugal very reasonably priced. This one's made by Manuel Ricciardo in Portugal. They're not a sponsor or anything, but they are one of the best in the business by a considerable margin. It's them or a couple of others in reality. And for the price, certainly if you're outside the box, why wouldn't you? Most people they can do with just an adjustable comb, which you could get cut onto an old GTI if you haven't found already for like 250, 300 with some nice hardware, maybe a bit more, but that's very reasonable. To buy a gun like a GTI, let's say a good one will set you back 1,200 quid, probably, but if you buy a ratty one that's less loved, it will cost you less. I don't know if there's any wisdom in that whatsoever. Let's shoot another pair. I mean, it's skeet. It's not the most challenging of things to go and shoot high scores at. But even all the big sporting stuff, and this isn't a particularly skeety setup, let's be honest, she's not half bad. So from Wiltshire, God's County, to where God keeps his second home in Dorset, we're here at Purbeck Shooting School now, mostly because I have a baby and I shouldn't have gone out to shoot when I went to go and shoot that gun, because leaving with a very young baby that far from home was stupid, without prior arrangement. So I had to cut that one short and go home. Now, however, we're at Purbeck Shooting School, another great shooting ground. I'm interested to look back at the footage of this and see how I moved this versus how I moved to Longthorn. It weighs more, it's a little bit more dead, but to be honest, it still gets the targets broken and it breaks them real well. Let's load her up. It was easier playing around. Sight picture versus gun speed is a very different thing, and I'm still learning a lot about it. Choosing whether to have a bigger visual gap and a slower gun speed, or a faster gun speed and a smaller visual lead. These are two things that still confuse the absolute arse out of me. To be fair, I think we're filming with Ed fairly soon, and that's one of the things I'm hoping to work on most, is about when to use gun speed and when to just accept that you need to put a huge gap and not move your gun a lot. Because if I'm powering through that E-target, like this, but trying to find that visual punch through a target, and I felt like I was giving that target 3 foot versus when I'm holding the gun out in front and giving it 8 foot is different. And what I find also is every gun lends itself to a slightly different style, as every target does. So this gun being a bit bigger and heavier than the Longthorn requires actually, you can do it both ways, but it lends itself to just placing it in front and slow movement, letting the target come into the gun, diminishing lead, if you will. Oh, wow. These clay things. Every time I shoot something that's not a Pro Fiber, I mean, complex are a great shell in 21 gram, don't get me wrong. And I do think that you don't need those 28 grams to break any of these targets. But that confidence boost by putting a big banger in. This gun stock was made over the internet with none of my measurements for gun stocks, just the measurements of my body. I think I must admit, it's a sad part, I think this configuration suits me now better in 2020 than my Maruku does. And we all grow and develop, and I'm now probably more of a clay shooter. I understand clay shooting and modern clay shooting better than I did 3 years ago, certainly, or 2 years ago. And I care about it more as well. Like, I was quite happy to go out and use clay shooting for training for game shooting. And now it's very different in my mind. The way I approach a target is completely different to how it was before. You know, I actually care about hold points, and I care about movements, I care about kill points, I care about the style and discipline with which I'm killing the target, how I am generating that gap, that lead, that forward allowance, whatever bollocks name you want to give it. I think this gun, where it's a bit heavier and a little bit more sporting, genuinely suits me better now. Rise above the clouds and see. I tell you, this probably has to be one of the best guns I own. And probably one of those rancid. I mean, it's actually got special bore technology in it, this. You know, every gun company comes up with a different bore, but this, over the last 30 years, has developed something called pitter bore. It's named after the famous bread. And what it is, it's a series of speckles where rust is eaten away at the barrel to give a really uneven surface. What that gives you is a completely terrible ballistically performance, but it seems to break the clays just as well as some of the other bollocks that comes out of gun manufacturers' mouths. And I say that in the most loving way possible. Last time we shot with military air power over us, which was at Eriswell Lodge. But at Purbeck, they've got some helicopters going around. So the audio is TGS quality. A lot of people asked where this stock had gone and what had happened to it. To be blunt, I didn't like it on my Mark 38. It made the gun a little bit rearward heavy. I'm a fairly tall bloke, I think I could say, quite fairly. And my leverage on a gun is more than most. A 32-inch gun moves faster for me than most others because of my size. So I don't particularly need a rearward heavy gun. I know a lot of people like them, and to be fair, they can work very well for some people, but just not for me. I do tend, certainly for a clay gun, to prefer something a little bit more front heavy, and that is about 5mm in front of the hinge pin. And that's with multi-choke barrels as opposed to the fixed choke. With my other gun, the Mark 38, when this stock was on it, it just balanced a little bit back. And to be honest, I found myself punching out targets like nothing else. It was just a little bit too wondy. And so making this change was an absolute dream. Just goes to show that sometimes things don't go to plan. And more importantly, when we are speaking to Mara Ricardo, if you were going to get a stock from them, which I can highly recommend, it might be worth stating, this is the weight of my current stock. Can we get somewhere close-ish? Or alternatively, you're going to have to accept that you might have to put some front end weights in a gun. If it's multi-choke, extended chokes, for example, would be a good addition if you're going to get a heavier stock than standard. So I have obviously shot with this stock and my gun combinations off camera, which I don't do a great deal of, to be fair, because I have a young family and I shoot quite a bit on camera, and I think it would be rude to think that I could do more than I currently do. But I've shot it a few times, and since putting it on here, I just didn't enjoy it. And I've got a few guns, so obviously you want to enjoy picking it up and taking it out. And this I enjoy picking up and taking out. It is a mean machine. It took some changing around and playing with the cone to get it right. I think at the start, I probably put it too high and not enough cast, and was trying to get too much aggression in there, thinking that was the way to slow myself down. But now it's at its lowest setting it's across, and it's still a touch high, but I see just enough rib to make it nice. And obviously, every sight picture takes a bit of learning, as every gun takes a bit of learning. You're not going to pick up a brand new gun and go and shoot the best of your ability. I've said it a million times, it takes about a year, depending on how much you shoot, to get used to a gun. And by that I mean, anyone can pick up a gun and go and shoot 70%. Say that. Most people who are experienced with guns will be able to pick up most guns and shoot 70% without too many issues. It's finding the nuances for the last 30%, fine-tuning yourself to not make mistakes, and finding out how to hit those slightly less gimme targets. Because every gun's going to take a slightly different drive, slightly different shooting style, and you need to know when you get into the stand what method you and your gun are going to use to do that. And this doesn't shoot any more familiarly than others, but just took a little less learning than shooting the whip. The whippet. The Mark 38 isn't a whippet. It shouldn't be a whippet. It's supposed to be a bit of a beast. It is now back to being a beast. The whippet is dead. Long live the beasts.